This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
I was 3 or perhaps 4 years old when I realized that I had been born into the wrong body and should really be a girl. I remember the moment well, and it is the earliest memory of my life. I was sitting beneath my mother's piano, and her music was falling around me like cataracts, enclosing me as in a cave. The round, stumpy legs of the piano were like 3 black stalactites, and the sound-box was a high, dark vault above my head. My mother was probably playing Sibelius, for she was enjoying a Finnish period then, and Sibelius from underneath a piano can be a very noisy composer. But I always liked it down there, sometimes drawing pictures on the piles of music stacked around me, or clutching my unfortunate cat for company. What triggered so bizarre a thought I have long forgotten, but the conviction was unfaltering from the start. On the face of things, it was pure nonsense. I seemed to most people a very straightforward child, enjoying a happy childhood. I was loved, and I was loving, brought up kindly and sensibly, spoiled to a comfortable degree, weaned at an early age on Huck Finn and Alice in Wonderland, taught to cherish my animals, say grace, think well of myself, and wash my hands before tea. I was always sure of an audience. My security was absolute. Looking back at my infancy, as one might look back through a wind-swept avenue of trees, I see there only a cheerful glimpse of sunshine. For, of course, the weather was much better in those days. Summers were really summers, and I seldom seem to remember it actually raining at all. More to my point, by every standard of logic, I was, patently, a boy. I was named James Humphrey Morris, male child. I had a boy's body. I wore a boy's clothes. It is true that my mother had wished me to be a daughter, but I was never treated as one. It is true that gushing visitors sometimes assembled me into their fox furs and lavender sachets to murmur that, with curly hair like mine, I should have been born a girl. As the youngest of 3 brothers in a family very soon to be fatherless, I was doubtless indulged. I was not, however, generally thought effeminate. At kindergarten I was not derided. In the street I was not stared at. If I had announced my self-discovery beneath the piano, my family might not have been shocked. Virginia Woolf's androgynous Orlando was already in the house, but would certainly have been astonished. Not that I dreamed of revealing it. I cherished it as a secret, shared for 20 years with not a single soul. At first, I did not regard it as an especially significant secret. I was as vague as the next child about the meaning of sex, and I assumed it to be simply another aspect of differentness. For different in some way I recognized myself to be. Nobody ever urged me to be like other children. Conformity was not a quality coveted in our home. We sprang, we all knew, from a line of odd forebears and unusual unions, Welsh, Norman, Quaker, and I never supposed myself to be much like anyone else. I was a solitary child in consequence, and I realize now that inner conflicts, only half formulated, made me more solitary still. When my brothers were away at school, I wandered lonely as a cloud over the hills, among the rocks, sloshing through the mud banks or prodding in the rock pools of the Bristol Channel, sometimes fishing for eels in the bleak dykes of the inland moors, or watching the ships sail up to Newport or Avonmouth through my telescope. If I looked to the east, I could see the line of the Mendip Hills, in whose lee my mother's people, modest country squires, flourished in life and were brass commemorated in death. If I looked to the west, I could see the blue mass of the Welsh mountains, far more exciting to me, beneath whose flanks my father's people had always lived. Decent, proud people, as a cousin once defined them for me, some of whom still spoke Welsh within living memory, and all of whom were bound together, generation after generation, by a common love of music. Both prospects, I used to feel, were mine, and this sense of double possession sometimes gave me a heady sense of universality, as though wherever I looked I could see some aspect of myself. An unhealthy delusion, I've since discovered, for it later made me feel that no country or city was worth visiting unless I either owned a house there or wrote a book about it. Like all Napoleonic fantasies, it was a lonely sensation too. If it all belonged to me, then I belonged to no particular part of it. The people I could see from my hilltop, farming their farms, tending their shops, flirting their way through seaside holidays, inhabited a different world from mine. They were altogether I was all alone. They were members. I was a stranger. They talked to each other in words they all understood about matters that interested them all. I spoke a tongue that was only mine, and thought things that would bore them.